Little twisted plot early in the Basha Supermarkets 200 at Phoenix International Raceway. Carl Edwards leads, while the other player in what has been the season-long tight fight for the championship so far, Kyle Busch, has had his troubles. They were 23 points apart starting the night, as they run now 146 between the two, with Kyle Busch being shown back in 32nd position. Shannon Spake is in the 18 team's pit. What are they saying down there, Shannon?
Well, Alan, I mean, what aren't they saying? This race has just been one thing after another for this 18. They had a bad pit stop because of a jack. The jack couldn't get under the car. The guys have grinded down the jack. Most recently, Kyle Busch went out for that last restart and said the car started off loose and then all of a sudden went tight. He thinks he may have a broken shock. He thinks the camber shim may have fallen out. He cannot dissect exactly what is going on. They did bring the car down. There was a cut in the tire. The air pressure was low, but the car has not gotten better since they changed those right sides. So the team is planning at this point to change the front shocks when they come down for a pit stop. So it is just madness down here in the 18 pit stall. Now over to the Craftsman Tech Garage with Tim Brewer to try to explain what is going on.
Yeah, good luck with that, Shannon. But anyway, when you got a shock absorber failure, folks, you got a lot of really thin shims inside the shock absorber. It's also sealed and it's pressurized in a chamber. But when a shock absorber loses air pressure or nitrogen pressure through this valve, it seems to cavitate a lot. It changes the handling characteristics of the car. But still, yeah, when you break something in this shock absorber, you know, you're sitting here on a coil-bound situation where this is the installed height of the spring. It's a solid spring like this. And it's sitting there actually, and the only really deflection you have is in the sidewall of the tire. So like I said, Shannon, it's going to be a guessing game right now until you actually change the shock absorber. Alan?
You put all that expensive stuff in the car to hold up the right front corner. Now you don't have it anymore. It can be a problem. Nationwide Series champ Clint Boyer is in the pit studio with us watching all this. You're in the car. You know something's wrong. You're trying to help your crew chief with some information. It's got to be frustrating for Kyle.
It is. It's absolutely very frustrating, and he has to stay calm. That's the hardest thing. It's easier said than done, but he has to stay calm, try to relay what he's feeling, what he's thinking, you know, and he's done that. If it's a broken shock, but you know, one thing to think about is they came in. Obviously, she said it had a little bit of cut in the tire. They put 2 tires on. It's probably going to be a little bit tighter. So you know, got to stay calm here, collect your thoughts, and come up with a game plan. Hopefully, the caution comes out soon, and you can come in and look at it. Now,
agree with me or disagree, but right now the 18 is duck hunting. It's a play on Carl's sponsor.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
If he can he's 2 laps down, but he's the next car behind Carl Edwards on the racetrack. He has no hope of getting the free pass until he gets back to at least 1 lap down.
Yeah, but they're a strong team. If they can get this car fixed, you know, he might be able to be a car that can contend with passing a leader and getting that lap back and then getting back 1 lap down and get the lucky dog. So he's not out of this thing. It's never too late. You never give up.
All right, so watching that 18, looking for that 60, Doc, and seeing if he catches him before the caution comes out or not.
Well, guys, here's the good news for Kyle Busch. Either he's adapted really, really well with his remarkable talents, or the car's adapted, because the last 2 laps, he is the fastest thing on the racetrack. He is actually now moving in on Carl Edwards to be able to run down the leader. So maybe things are looking a little back up again for the 18 car.
I don't think it was nearly as bad as what he sounded. I mean, he was finding almost everything wrong with it, but the car is very, very competitive. You can see he is running this 60 car down, and he's probably going to get one of these laps back. If I'm down there in the pits, I don't panic just on what he's saying. I'm watching these lap times, and if they're as good as I see right now, I'll leave him out there and just try to get back on track.
Yeah, right now he's hoping that a caution doesn't occur before he can get to Carl Edwards and get one of those laps back. So the car, it does look like it's much better. You don't know exactly what it was.
Here. What's on your gauges?
Only a couple of pounds of air could make a huge difference in the way the race car was driving. So that could have been it, and everything is fixed now. He's just hoping for no caution.
9, 13.5 volts, 75 PSI, 30 on the water.
So the drama building here in the desert at Phoenix International Raceway. Carl Edwards is our leader. He's very familiar with what happens if you lead the laps here and they wave the checkered flag. You get to do that signature somersault. Carl won it here as a rookie back in 2005, and he won it again last time we were here in fall of 2008. 20 laps away from halfway here at Phoenix International Raceway. NASCAR Nationwide Series action. Carl Edwards is our leader. Let's take a look at our Holiday Inn race summary. There have been 4 leaders, 5 lead changes. Carl Edwards has led the bulk of the laps tonight. The average speed just over 106.5 miles per hour. There are still 18 cars on the lead lap. There have been 9 laps under caution, 2 different caution flags. Kyle Busch lost 117 points because of having to go to pit road for an unscheduled stop, and is now being shown 2 laps down in 29th position. Now, there were some possible issues developing with the 60 car. Let's listen in.
Think the motor's going to blow up. 10-4, man. Give us your gauges here. What's on your gauges? 210, 240, 9, 75 PSI, 30 on the water. 4, copied all that, 10-4.
Guys, you heard the numbers. What do you think?
The numbers say everything's fine, but he's feeling something in that car that tells him he's going to blow. He's fixing to blow up. I don't know what it is, whether it's a vibration or what it is, but those numbers were all normal.
Be scary to think how fast he might be if all this wasn't happening with the rear end and the engine's going to blow up. A lot of things happening with this race car.
Go ahead, switch boxes, try that.
Biggest thing that's happening right now is he's just pulling away. He's got about a 3.5-second lead on Greg Biffle.
Let's see if we can get more information specifically from the pits on the leaders as Nationwide Insurance takes you up to speed, beginning with our leader, Carl Edwards and Mike Massaro.
Well, Doc, believe it or not, with an issue that large, this team has remained relatively poised. Dan Stillman, the crew chief, sits on the box right next to Jack Roush. They've spoken back and forth, trying to diagnose what's going on with this race car and trying to come up with a game plan. You just heard Dan Stillman radio to Carl, trying to encourage him to change ignition boxes, hoping that that might be the problem. But still, Carl obviously had some concern, but this team still very poised. Meanwhile, a teammate of theirs, Greg Biffle, running right behind. Remember, this is Greg Biffle's first time in this car since his win a couple of weeks ago that snapped a 76-race winless streak. Spoke with his crew chief, Eddie Pardue, earlier today. He told me that win did two things for this team. It not only gave them confidence, it validated all their hard work. They've made wholesale changes on the bodies over the offseason, and it really has made a big difference. Vince.
Kevin Harvick running in the 33, and Harvick is really having a good race car tonight. He has run a few of these laps under the 29-second mark, fastest on the track. He just came over the radio visiting with Ernie Cope and said, I'm going to save it for a little while. Ernie said, no problem, we're plenty fast. We've got 25 laps to a pit stop. Mike.
Spoke with Mike Bliss this morning just after practice, and he was not all that optimistic heading into tonight. He said the car was loose in, it was loose off, and to compound things, they were just slow. Well, they didn't change anything after practice, thinking that this track would get a little bit tighter, and it has. That's helped this car. He's pretty good right now and hoping for a very solid finish. He had a rough start to the season and looking to turn it around now, Shannon.
Mike, what a great weekend it was last week in Nashville for the 20 team. Joey Logano going to victory lane for the first time in 2008. Dave Rogers, crew chief, said he feels like the weight of the world has been lifted off of his shoulders. Hard to believe that it had been since July since the 20 car had been to victory lane. Right now, Joey Logano, he is battling tight conditions on the racetrack. Mike?
And Shannon, remember what Tony Eury Sr. did for Dale Earnhardt Jr. a few years ago? Almost like a mentor, if you will. Kind of took him under his wing and encouraged him. Well, he's done the same thing with Brad Keselowski. After such a rough start to the 2009 season, he sat down this young driver and explained to him that he just needs to do some things a little bit different. He said, now we have to go points racing. We need to be a little bit more conservative. That got through to Keselowski. The approach has changed, and the results have come. Right now, looking for another strong finish, trying to turn his season around. Shannon.